The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I am Doug Vincent, along with, what? No, Eric Aguilar? No, that busy guy is off again, educating himself. So today we have got Forrest Kelly. How you doing, Forrest?
Doing good. Is this where I identify myself?
Yes, you can jump in there, identify yourself, and also tell everybody a little bit about your podcast.
Well, it's going to be a minute, so go ahead and identify yourself, and then I'll roll with it.
Very good. A polio survivor, crutch and brace user for years, and then transitioned into a wheelchair user over the last 20 years. All right, so take it away, sir.
I'm an AB and a slapstick user for probably 60 years. I'm 63 years old, so I'm a bit of a problem child, I think, with my mother. She tells me constantly. But I'm also the host of the Best 5-Minute Wine podcast, and I don't drink wine. I've tasted it, but it just tastes like vinegar to me, and which probably explains why I like everything plain. When I get a hamburger, it's just meat, cheese, and bun, and oh my gosh, no onions, no mustard, none of that. And same with food, pizza. It's pepperonis as far as I go on that down that trail, but. In the Big 5-Minute Wine Podcast news, I got a notification yesterday that in the food category in Tanzania, I have the #1 podcast.
Wow! Congratulations!
I don't know how many people listen in Africa, in Tanzania, but I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce in Tanzania, so we'll see if they come back with anything.
Well, you got to take the wins where you get them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I can drop my mic and just finish with podcasting. But I wanted to tell people that I've been doing podcasting for 5 years now, and thank you.
It took me that long to find that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so I've got a little bit of momentum, and Doug and I have been broadcasting buddies for years and years and years. But Doug, you've been doing Walk and Roll Live. You just had your 1-year anniversary, right?
Yeah, back in May. So close. What did I? A little over a year. Yeah.
So to get new listeners, you've really got to rely on everybody listening right now, because there is a lot of work that goes into it. You've got planning and preparation. You've got branding. You've got research, script writing, technical stuff. You've got your editing software, your recording software. And then once you record the interview, then you've got to edit that up. Then you've got to promote the episodes. And then you've got to take all of that information and analyze it and see, okay, am I going in the correct places? And if you've been listening to Walk and Roll Live, you've noticed a bit of a change, and the music that he's put together is awesome for Doug. And then you've got your jingle packages, and then you've got these people that you've created and you've had to bring into to make announcements throughout the podcast. So to make it listenable and enjoyable, there's no irritating sounds, and there's a design in all of this. And I say that because Doug is doing it all by himself. Eric helps out with things with what he can, but this is Doug's right in his wheelhouse. But there's still a lot of work. So when he told me that he needed a co-host, I say all of that to say this. When he needed a co-host today, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring one new listener. So I deliver medication. It's a gig thing. And I deliver medication to people that can't get out of their homes. And I go to remote areas throughout. I live in the high desert in Joshua Tree, 29 Palms area. So I'm getting to people that are very remote and they don't get a lot of social things. But I said, okay, I'm going to find somebody and I'm going to turn them on to Walk and Roll Live. And so this is kind of I edited it a little bit, but this is what a customer, she's a sweet lady, but this is kind of disjointed. But I was using my phone to kind of edit things, but here we go.
Thank you very much for delivering my medication.
Well, now, ma'am, Joanne, can I call you Joanne?
Okay. Yes, you may. Hey, come inside here. I've got chickens and they won't shut up, and I just can't hear you.
Have you heard of podcasts?
I've heard of podcasts.
Do you listen to some podcasts?
Yeah, a few crime podcasts on occasion, yeah.
Okay, I've got one here for you. I want you to listen to. It's called Walk and Roll Live. It's about disability stories. Can you get your phone?
Sure, let me get my phone. It's in my purse.
Here, let me bring it up here. Let me show you. So you just go to this here. You click on that, and you go to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories. There, you see the picture? Doesn't that look good?
Oh, yes. Looks great.
All right, next time I deliver any medication and things, I want to hear a report about how that podcast is, Walk and Roll Live. Okay, Shirley?
Okay, I got it.
Well, thank you.
I forgot. The reason I did that was because I want the listeners, everybody listening right now, if you can find a friend or somebody to make them listen. But the biggest reason was I wanted to hear the jingle because I love that jingle. We got letters.
All right, here we go, everybody.
We get letters. We get letters. Oh, so many letters. And it's time to share them with you.
And there you have it.
Love that.
Well, when you started playing Shirley, I wanted to ask, but it seemed pretty apparent that the chickens were there and live, right? Because I heard chickens. I'm like, did Forrest add those chickens or those chickens at Shirley's house?
These houses are one place is called Wonder Valley, and it's and I think they named it that because you wonder what your neighbor's doing because they're so far away, and it's like, what are you doing out here? And it's where it's 120 degrees in the summer, but they've got random chickens in the house walking around outside, and when I pull up to the driveway, it's like, geez, I don't want to hit any chickens. Or dogs, goats. I had a little problem with a goat one time.
Oh, yeah. Stories to tell, though, right?
What's that?
Stories to tell.
Yeah, stories to tell. So,
Whew. Well, I appreciate all that, and I appreciate you encouraging people to bring one listener. So if everybody brings one listener, it might pop up to like 80 listeners.
And if you do get somebody and, they hit the subscribe button or the follow button, let us know. Write a letter so that we can play that jingle.
Yeah.
So next time I want to give Doug a reason to play that song.
Can't get enough of that. So, I enjoyed the early part of your introduction where you were talking about being AB, which is able-bodied for people that don't know. But I do know that you have a committed relationship with a chiropractor. So you do have some issues.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I could go to that chiropractor
every day.
Oh, yeah. And I was on earlier on the teeter machine, and I've got up to 15 minutes hanging upside down like a bat now. That definitely helps with that.
I remember going to the gym when I would do the inverse lift, where you get on the bench that elevates your legs. And you kind of drop your legs over it so it holds you from sliding away. And I guess it's to get, that obliques or whatever, and get your chest muscles from a different angle. And, oh, man, I used to love that because you get on that and it would just stretch your back out. So, yeah, maybe I'm going to have to get a teeter-totter. What'd you call it?
The brand is the maker of the guy. His name is Teeter. And
no way.
Yeah, it's a teeter machine that you hang upside down.
That's wild because I'm just thinking it's like a teeter-totter that teeters you upside down. I didn't know it was a guy's name.
And I've had it in the house probably 20 years and used it like 10 times, but I finally got on it the other day, and it's one of those things that it takes a moment, which I don't have patience for.
Yeah,
dial it in that you can lay your hands across your chest and you can just barely move, and then it'll put you in that sweet spot position rather than banging all the way to one extreme to the other. But I've got it dialed in now. And
you can get in and out of it on your own?
Yeah, exactly. So, the dogs, they give me a wide path when they know I'm getting out of that thing.
Don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably whacked one of those dogs once or twice, right? Inadvertently.
Rio and Sassy. But when I'm hanging upside down, I'll be relaxed and my mouth's open and, hanging upside down, and they'll come over. I can't even hear them. And they'll start licking my face. And it's like, whoa! Get out of here.
Oh, man. So before we go any further, we're going to take our break here real quick. But I do want to thank Ruthie Goldcorn for being on last week and sharing all of her knowledge. And again, we could have gone on for hours probably with her. And there's a few episodes, I think, that we could do with her that would be very helpful. I think I talked to you about this, Forrest, but it's taken forever for me to get my chair on a new chair that I started. Yep. I started talking to somebody the other day, and I was thinking it was 7 months. It's really more like going on 9 months. And so I was thinking I might have to get Ruthie involved. Sounds like she's a gal that can get stuff done. But I called them yesterday and had a very passionate conversation with them. So hopefully that will accelerate things. If not, I got Ruthie in the holster, ready to pull her out.
I listened to Ruthie's episode twice because she's no nonsense kind of gal. Get things done, and she was just awesome. I just love that interview. It was great work by both of you. Yeah,
it went really well. I think I said in the interview that I've heard her for years at the Disability Collaborative, and she's across the room, and they give everybody a chance to introduce themselves, and the stuff she talks about is advocating, and she knows all the legislature that's coming through on different things, and she's just amazing. So finally, this time since I joined the show, I said I got to track her down, get her on. So and I think, like I say, a couple more things I think she could cover and would be very useful for our listeners. All right, so today we've got SF Fencing, which is, I think the SF is San Francisco, and we met them at the Angel City Games a few weeks ago and thought, this will be a good guest for the show. So today we're going to talk parafencing. We've got the Paralympics coming up, so we'll touch on that. And it's all after we hear from our friends at Ugyar Professional Training.
At Ugyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Ugyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Ugyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
Welcome back, my friend. I am Doug. We've got Forrest here sitting in for Eric, who's off at another educational thing. And we have a couple of guests today. We're going to be talking with San Francisco Fencing. They're going to be telling us all about fencing and also parafencing with the Paralympics coming up, and we're going to learn all about that. We're going to start first by having them introduce themselves.
Sure. My name is Stacey Breidenstein. I'm a 52-year-old woman who, as an adult, was diagnosed with autism. So we don't have autism. We are autistic people. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a lot of answers for a life full of a little bit of confusion, a lot of masking. So I feel like my neurodiversity helps me connect and understand with students of all ages. With my partner, Brandon Smith, we have SF Fencing Academy and work preferably with the U.S. Parafencing team. And I work with Accessible Yoga School and their mentor program. And I love teaching accessible adaptive yoga and really all the limbs of yoga. So it's not just about movement, it's about really life, and yoga's a great life coach. And that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Well, we have to make a note here and have you on for another episode to talk about adaptive yoga. I never thought about that for a topic. That would be awesome. All right. You're up, Brandon.
Hello. I'm a 43-year-old Brandon Smith. I have been coaching fencing for somewhere over a decade now, and parafencing for about a little over half a decade. And I myself I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD, so I've had fun with that my whole life. And yeah, that's me.
Well,
and,
welcome.
I do work with USA Fencing, Parafencing, and Utah Fencing Foundation as well. And anybody else who needs help out there.
Excellent. Well, welcome both to the program, Walk and Roll Live. Want to delve into your expertise and find out, first of all, about parafencing. And the timing is great because we've got the Paralympics coming up in Paris. So maybe we can touch on your expertise for that as well. I'd like to get to know a little bit about our guests. And, we've got Forrest here today as our guest co-host, and I'm sure he'll have some questions as well. Nice to have you along, Forrest.
Thank you, Doug, and looking forward to it. Just the great introductions, Stacey and Brandon. I got a clear picture now of you two, and get ready because the questions are becoming fast and furious. There's a bunch of them cooking around in my brain. I've been thinking about it for the past couple of days, and I do a lot of driving, so I got time to clear out, and I wrote a big list, and Doug's got a list too, so looking forward to it.
So we always like to start with a little bit of background on you guys and how you maybe your background in childhood and maybe a interest in sports, and how did you find your way to parafencing? Probably fencing in what would you call it? Typical fencing. What is the term we use for that?
Just fencing.
Fencing. Just fencing. I like it.
Utah Fencing Foundation will say stand-up fencing or sit-down fencing. Sometimes.
Gotcha. Okay. So who do we want to start with? Stacey, you want to tell us a little bit about your background and the path that kind of brought you to this?
So I came to fencing through Brandon. We met, became friends, started dating, and he introduced me to the world of fencing. Since I was about 18, I started practicing yoga, and for me, it brought this sense of really belonging because it kept telling me the message that I was fine just the way I was as I wended my way through a world that just seemed confusing a lot of the time, or I just got really good at acting appropriately. And this is the way you act. And, oh, you said that, so don't say that. That made someone mad, or you were too blunt. Just different things how I express my neurodiversity. And yoga allowed me to find that quiet space and be real with myself and accept how I am, which is an ongoing process. But really, I came to fencing through Brandon and found it completely confusing. I had no idea what was going on. They were like, oh, they're jumping around. Sometimes they wear a shiny thing. And then you fast forward 6 years and all of a sudden we have a fencing school together. And his work with parafencing and his passion, especially at the time really working with Shelby Jensen, who made Tokyo, that was exciting to me and hooked me into the sport, and being able to not only be part of the really unique sport of fencing, but to embrace the adaptive aspect of it.
And Brandon, how did your path start?
Well, I grew up around mostly individual sports, largely BMX, skateboarding, surfing, a lot of those kind of sports. And then my family, they were into wrestling, and I got into wrestling for a bit, and then started heading back out of that more towards surfing and skateboarding. And then I was working on a farm in Northern California, and then saw a commercial one day that showed some fencing on it. And I was like, that is amazing. Like, wow, that looks really cool. I wish I could try that. And the woman I was talking to, she's like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. And the next day after yoga and a little session in a tree, she comes outside and she's like, hey, the artist across the street that does all the statues around town, he's a fencing coach. I was like, no way. And I look over there and he's out there welding in his garage. He's like, care if I go talk to him? She's like, no. So I go over there and I was like, I heard you're a fencing coach. He's like, yeah, I do Tuesday, Thursday classes. Like, could I try it? He's like, yeah, carpool with me. and we fenced for probably about an hour before class, during class, and then another hour after. And I was like, I'm in, and did his class every single day. And he's still doing them up there. And I went back to Utah and found all the local clubs, and one was looking for an assistant coach, and I started there up in Park City.
Wow. So have you been a competitor as well? Have you done it competitively? Yeah.
Yes. I still compete, but I try to compete only if no students are fencing. So it's hard for me to go from coaching to competitor. I've tried it a few times. It doesn't really work out that well. I tend to start then coaching my opponents and going, oh, that's a good try. Maybe do this next time.
So it's not a switch you can turn on and off.
Not very easily.
Yeah.
Not yet.
So Stacey alluded to the kind of jumping around. So I'm sure all of that jumping around is intentional. There are movements that you are using to gain an advantage on your opponent. So, and every sport has its vocabulary and all of that. Can we touch upon some of that, what all that's about and what we should look for?
Yeah, they try to initiate certain movements and stuff, but there is tails like they have in poker where you will have these automatic responses with your body that you're not really in control of. Yeah. And you can give away certain ideas or things that you're trying to do. But overall, you're basically in stand-up fencing, you have to deal with your footwork and movement on the piece back and forth, the strip, piece to strip. And so you're moving around quite a bit. You're trying to engage your opponent and either trying to find a hole or make them a mistake so you can find that hole and then attack their target. In sit down and parafencing, it's similar, but instead of the footwork and being able to run away, you're using your back and forth in the seat to move around. And so it's a much tighter area to fence and fight in, where you can't really run away. You can lean away, but you're not really getting away. You got to fight. It's a lot faster.
So in all those movements, there are, I guess, what you would call, we met you guys at the Angel City Sports, and you were doing a demonstration, and my partner that I was with that day, you were giving her some lessons, and it was interesting to listen to you as you were coaching her. There are offensive moves and there are defensive moves. So you were teaching her at one point offensive moves, and then you were teaching her at some point defensive moves. So maybe we talk a little bit about, how those differ and all of that.
Yeah, and the vocabulary around that is generally engages that whole offense defense. Because if I beat the blade in an offensive, then it's a beat. If I beat the blade in a defense, now it's a parry.
So is that part of how you would score it if you were watching a match, or
not how you'd score it, but who's doing what in that motion?
Okay.
So if somebody is attacking and they look very confident and they're starting this attack first, that is the attacker, while the other person tries to hit them at the same time, but like kind of veers away a little bit or tries to duck or brush the blade away, then that's they're acting in a defensive action.
And I'm going to put this in a bullet point way that my brain works. So when you're fencing on the strip, if you attack, you can do things like have a straight attack where your blade goes directly into the opponent. You can have what Brandon alluded to is a beat attack, meaning you tap their blade and then you attack. If someone goes to attack you, you do a parry, which is just like in boxing, it's a block. So a parry is a block. If you do a attack and you miss and then you re-attack quickly, that's called a remise. If you block a blade and then re-attack, that's called a parry riposte. So the language is taken out of mostly the French, and even the 8 parries are often in French or Italian. So a lot of this is taken from this classic, French and Italian style, and we use those words here in the U.S.
Gotcha. So I mentioned scoring before. So how is a match scored? Am I using the term, is it a match?
Yeah. Match about.
Gotcha. So is it, are there, because I know there's electronics and there's touch points, where when you touch somebody with your tip, then that'll score. But is there anything else in how the match is going on that is also scored?
Well, not really. It's basically, I was going to say that it's basically, if you hit them, it's only a single light, then it's 1 touch, 1 point. If there's 2 people in 2 of the weapons that they touch at the same time, only 1 person can score a point. So it's up to the referee to decide who is the one with priority, or who's the attacker versus the defender. And then the other weapon, epee, if you both hit each other, you both get a light, you both get a point.
Okay.
And most of these are scored up to 15 touches. Or if you're in pool bouts at the beginning before your direct eliminations, your DEs, it's to 5 touches.
Yeah, with technology, it is what it is. We're dealing with AI now and everything. And then football technology has come in with instant replay, and there's pushback on that because it slows the game down, et cetera. Now baseball is talking about in the minor leagues, they've got robotic umpires, so they're not. But in fencing and parafencing, is technology starting to come in, and is there any pushback, or is there any as far as scoring? And I know there's target areas, so is it a hindrance, or how has it affected parafencing, if at all?
It's made a huge difference, actually, with instant or with video replay, which is they'll make like a little square with their hands generally, or sword or something, and generally that instant replay is made a huge difference to where the referees, if they don't know, they can go and check the video themselves and confirm. And then if you disagree with the ref's call at a certain point in the tournament, you can call for a video. And usually that's the top 8 or like in the finals, you can have a video. But if you're doing pools or at the beginning, you're probably not going to have access to video replay. The video replay is generally reserved for the finals and the semifinals.
Yeah, and then is there a flow that it interrupts when they have to do that?
There can be, and some fencers will use it as a way to distract or
regroup,
break up the flow of the other person's winning streak.
Yeah,
but you only get 2. You only get two video replays, so you can waste one or something. But generally people aren't really using. They can use other methods to break up the momentum of their opponent. If they scored several hits in a row, they can fix their hair, tie their shoe, wipe the sweat out of their face, bend their blade, change their blade. There's a number of things you can do to break up their flow.
Overall video replay has helped people. If you're in the semifinal, final match, you're in the top 8, like Brendan said, and you challenge it and you're correct and they reverse the judgment, then you don't use up that video replay. You still have it.
Still have your 2.
You still have your 2.
Gotcha. So for purposes of this conversation, I'd like to maybe focus a little bit more on parafencing. Maybe we can start with like the similarities. Is there, when you coach, like where do you start that process of introducing somebody to parafencing?
They really do go together quite well. The only difference is that your area of combat is either stationary, or like your fencing piece or your strip is really close together, or you have 14 meters to play. And in parafencing, even though you are seated and locked down in this frame, you can still move around quite a bit and reach your opponent. You can move the frame so much that the whole thing can jump up in the air and shake and move, and
that doesn't disqualify you. It's okay if you get that animated.
Yes, yeah. And the only thing is that you have to remain with one butt cheek on the seat at all times, because otherwise the butt judges, the assessors, will sit there and watch to see if they see light between your seat and your butt.
Yeah. So I think we talked a little bit too.
An actual judge for that? Wow.
Correct.
The butt judge.
2 of them. Each fencer has a butt judge.
Is there a French name for that?
We just call them the assessors.
The assessors. I like it. So,
Are they wearing a different uniform if we're watching on TV or seeing at a match? Are they? No, they're not wearing a different uniform or a different. I know in football there's different uniforms for the umpires and referees and judges.
No, they will wear the same. They're just other referees who just they're assigned as the butt judges basically. So they'll sit on either side of the opponents and they will watch. And then during the halfway point, they'll switch. They'll change who they're watching.
Whose butt they're watching?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Good.
And that's huge because I could see that a lot of movement and a lot of strategy. That if you can get that extra half inch,
absolutely.
come off the chair and score a point, you might get desperate sometimes or something.
Exactly.
From competitor to competitor, there may be some competitors that may not have feeling in that area, and it may be difficult for them to know when they're leaving the seat. Right, Stacey?
I would say more it's that if you, in the United States, the A and B category, which is dictated by how much core control you have, an A has a lot more core control, and a B would be a lot of paraplegics, etc. So if in the United States, you're fencing A and B fencers all together. So an A fencer has an advantage if they could lift up their butt as opposed to a B fencer. So it's really about being fair and equitable to everyone.
Yeah.
In overseas and international competition, A's and B's fence separately.
Well, that brings up a point, and either one of you can address this. How do you qualify? I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's been a lot of talk about who's qualified to be in what competition, in the Olympics that just finished. What's to stop an able-bodied person coming in and competing in parafencing, or are there rules about that?
There are rules, and there is people. You have to have an assessment done by. Generally, I've got to be in the room with the 2 doctors who get to make those assessments, and they'll run through a battery of tests to make sure that your injury is A, B, or C, or if you're injured enough. And if you're not injured enough, then you do not get to compete.
And then through that assessment, it's determined whether you're going to compete in the A or the B as well?
Or C, yes.
Oh, and C, there's 3.
There, correct. And they can also they can adjust their scale. Usually like at the World Cup in DC, they had their first assessment in the room. And then after that, they would kind of follow you for the next day or two and adjust if they need to. Where some people were like, well, we're going to put you at a low A. And then by the second day, they're like, no, you're a B. And then, okay, so then that'll just shuffle you around a little bit. And some people's injuries get worse and some people's get better. So that can also change in the future as well.
Yeah. So even as you age, if your abilities deteriorate, you might be changed in your categorization.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you do have another assessment, I believe you do have to pay for it at that point.
Gotcha. First one's free.
Yes.
Oh, more
I
than
believe
that.
so.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, it costs money to get there and everything else.
Right.
But
So where are the competitions happening? And if you wanted to check this out, where would you go if this is interesting? This has piqued your interest in listening to this, and you're somebody that would like to compete in this. Where would you go other than SF fencing? That's a good place to start. But we're hopefully nationwide. I know we have some listeners in other countries as well. So
if you look up wheelchair fencing online and or parafencing online, you will find a good amount of things. Usually the governing body, IWAS, they have a schedule that you can look through and see where all the local tournaments are around the world. And then we have, in the United States, we have our own tournament schedule that's either through USA Fencing, where they're like the larger tournaments, or we also have Ask Fred, where you can go and see all your local tournaments. And then that will distinguish whether they're parafencing or just stand-up fencing.
And then maybe give us an idea of like the, entry level. You're a beginner. Is there categories for that, and then you compete your way up to the higher levels?
Yes, you would go to. Generally, you start at your club. You work through your goals and everything else, and then you start finding your local tournaments, and you start from there. And if you're a parafencer, you start generally with your parafencing tournaments if you have any locally. If not, then you'll have to go out of state. And if you don't have any smaller competitions or mixed events where you do walk and rolls, where we'll have a mixed event of standing and sit fencers together in the same tournament, where if you're in a pool of people, say 7 people, and you have one parafencer in that pool, everybody else will do the stand-up. And then when you have your competition with your sit-down fencer, you will just sit in a chair, like basically one of our design chairs that the Jensens helped develop. And you can sit in this universal chair and fence with somebody in a wheelchair.
Very nice. Now, Brandon, you led me into my question about the chair. Is it standardized across parafencing? I know you've been involved in the development. And if you are getting into this, does every club have a chair? Do you have to get your own chair? How's all that work?
Usually, when the Utah Fencing Foundation started, they took office chairs and took an arm off of it. And that was the beginning, and that wasn't that long ago. And a lot of clubs are kind of starting the same way. And if you need to start someplace, I feel like a bench is a great place, because the bench, you can slide up and down, you can move it. There is no backrest on that unless you put something to there. But generally, you can get away with just using a couple chairs and start from there. Yeah, you're not going to be able to lunge full speed and everything else, but there's something. And then a lot of athletes have their own personal chairs made for them, designed by one of the local wheelchair companies or a company from in the United States or around the world, and that will be designed to fit their specs of their body and their style, however they like.
Now, are there sanctioning body rules on having one of those manufacturers? There are certain heights and widths and all those things.
Yeah, each chair has a certain amount of specs. It has to have a certain amount of height, and then a certain amount of things. And as long as your chair is within those specs and there's no like weird things attached to it or something that doesn't, go beyond, you should be okay. And they're pretty open to make it fit for each individual fencer. So if my arm doesn't work, I have this attachment to it, they should be pretty cool with that.
Gotcha. So they're adaptive within the adaptive device.
Yes,
right.
And most of the time, if there's a question and you get a doctor's note, then you're good.
Yeah, good.
Ultimately, there's this disconnect because a sport chair is really expensive, upwards of anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 or more, depending on the sport. Your average fencing chair costs about $3,500. So Shelby Jensen, Tokyo Paralympian, her dad, Jed Jensen, along with Brandon and some folks, came up with this practice chair that we lovingly refer to as the Jedi chair because of Jed. And that's been able to be produced for about $500. So the Utah Fencing Foundation produced a bunch of those chairs, and then they're now on loan throughout the country to clubs who want to start parafencing programs. And a really easy way, if you are interested in parafencing, is to go to usafencing.org/parafencing. And, there's some information there, but lack of equipment shouldn't hinder someone from wanting to get into the sport. So that's really part of accessibility, right? Is that it's already expensive. It is so expensive to have a disability, more than people realize. So how do we open up the whole this wonderful sport to people without it being prohibitive?
Yeah. The chair that you're talking about, is that the one that you had at Angel City Games? Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it seemed very, this sounds like a diss almost, but, it seemed very simple, yet very effective.
Yeah. Because really all you need is a chair that can get locked down into.
Yeah.
the devices that they lock down into the platform. So as long as you meet those basic specs of what they require as a chair, then it doesn't necessarily need to even roll. The Brazilians, they have their own version, and that thing does not roll at all. It just, they could drag it around. Ours at least has the wheels on it, so you can roll it through the airports pretty easily now.
Almost like luggage, right? The little wheels, you prop it up and you can roll it on those wheels.
Yes. Yeah. And we've gotten pretty good at packing those things with more stuff on it. And then actually the arm will extend out, so you have like a carrying device on there. You can carry a lot more stuff on it. And it just helps because especially if you're a parafencer that's already in a wheelchair, and then you have a sport wheelchair, and then your gear behind it. There's you got a little train going on. So we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody.
Yeah, definitely seen those athletes, in their everyday chair, pulling a rugby chair or something like that, or basketball chair, and they've got all their luggage piled up in it. Yeah, definitely seen that. So, Forrest, I'm going to tap you again. You want to jump in here with any other of your 2,000 questions?
Yeah. Stacey, your explanation at the beginning of your diagnosis was later in life?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because listening to you talk and things, Doug and I had talked previously where you showed me this statistic that X amount of people make decisions every day based on emotions. And I was like, wow, that's like 90% or something. And it's like, wow, I never make a decision based on emotions, hardly ever. It's all facts. And then listening to you explain some of the different things about the different fencing and different things, you were so logical. And it was like, okay, that's really good. So I'm kind of curious to see, because of, how you've explained things, that I can digest them. I get out of broadcasting and podcasting, editing is laborious task, but when it's done, that's where my passion is. It's like, wow, I took it from this to all the way to here. So Brandon and Stacey, where is your passion in this? In that when you get to do this one thing or whatever it is, you're like, yeah, okay, I can't wait for tomorrow because I get to do this. Even though you love all of it, is there a certain part that really gets you going?
For me, it's working with people and seeing their own aha moments unfold when giving them information in a way that is accessible to them. A thing that can be pretty annoying, at least to me, when you have people who are not perhaps disabled yet, is they talk about empowering. We're going to empower people, and we're going to empower this disabled person, and we're going to empower them to do this and that. And it's really irritating because you're not doing a damn thing. They will empower themselves, get out of the way, give them information, set up the world so that it makes more sense and it is truly accessible. And then people can empower themselves. So when I can be part of that, it helps me to realize my own potential and say I am on the right path of doing what I like to do. And also being part of the community and saying we're in this together and we can make this happen. And whether that's through yoga, fencing, being available and getting it, and having a space that has a truly accessible bathroom and a doorway and pieces that are designed so that it's easier to roll over, because Brandon thinks about those things. When I can be part of that path along with someone, because we're in it together, that's what's really exciting.
You want to take that question too, Brandon?
Yeah, I like the problem solving of it. Every time you get up on the strip and you're fencing somebody, you have to figure that person out in a very short amount of time. And when somebody who's either a new fencer or been fencing their whole life, it doesn't really change that much. You're going to come up against somebody that has a different style that you're trying to figure out. And the beginning part of this with a lot of the new parafencers is that not only they got to figure out somebody else, but they got to figure out their own body and how they can work through this new dimension of space and working, to best another opponent. So a lot of my time is spent trying to figure out what's going to be best for this person and their individual needs, and see what we can do with them, and where we can make the most success for them as rapidly as possible. Because a lot of my fencers are adults, and some of my fencers are in their senior years, and they still want to get after it. So it's like, all right, let's go, let's make it happen.
So do you feel like that is when you're analyzing an opponent, do you feel like it's more intuitive or analytical? I mean, are you consciously, looking at them and seeing what they're doing and analyzing it? Or because you've done it so much, do you feel like it's become kind of second nature? You feel it and react to it?
It's probably a mix of both of those things. I've done a lot of weird things out there, a lot of different type of jobs, and a lot of them have been problem solving on the fly. And some of those become where, I've done this a million times. Oh, this one's a little different. And then, okay, here's a number of things that I've tried before. Maybe this will work. And kind of fencing's a little bit similar to that, where it's like, well, this person's doing this thing and they've done this several times already. I guess they'll probably do this again. So if you do this, you should be able to get through that, and little things like that.
And then if I may, Stacey, listening to you, I volunteer for an organization. It's an independent living center. And, part of our mission statement is to help people, because when I say that, people will ask, well, what do you do? And we'll say, we help people with disabilities live the most independent life of their choice. And I always emphasize that choice is the most important word in that sentence, because with people with a disability, people like to make decisions for them. They might, they like to help them. They like to, just take over for whatever reason. I believe it comes from a good place. It's good people wanting to help when they see somebody, especially that has something that presents, as we say, with a disability. But you're right. You're not giving that person the power, if you're doing it for them. You can assist them if they ask, and that helps them have the power. Yeah. So I agree with you.
We talk a lot in accessible yoga about agency and what does that really mean? And Brandon and I use the Ed Roberts quote, which I'll probably mess up a little, but Ed Roberts, famous disability rights activist who passed away, he said there are two kinds of people in the world, those with disabilities and those with their yet to be discovered disability. Yeah. And we tell that. We just finished summer camp season with all these kids and day summer camp. And we talk about that. And we tell these able-bodied kids like how we able-bodied, right? But we don't know the neurodiversity. We don't really know what's going on always. So that's the appearance and the outward. But we teach parafencing. The parafencing chairs are there. This past week at summer camp, one of our adult parafencers took part in the entire camp. And the kids got to sit down and fence with her. And we normalized, it was just normal. Oh, Rachel's here. She uses a walker sometimes. And this is, we're going to sit down and fence with her. And she participates in these different ways. That's how we get real equality. Is for so long, people were shoved away and hidden. And there's not accessible buildings. And there weren't accessible streets to roll on. And so that's what we're working for. Yeah.
It's just kind of fun for me, but, because I volunteer for different organizations that help people with disabilities, or have services and programs for them. And whenever I'm a board member on a number of them. And when I show up at an event, I kind of enjoy watching people try to figure out if I'm a consumer or participant or somebody who's a volunteer with the organization. I can just kind of, they're not sure how to approach me. Or sometimes I can tell with the tone of their voice that they think. There's a certain voice that people will use with people with disabilities, like they're talking to a child, even though I'm pushing 70, so yeah. Little lesson if you're out there and being helpful. So anything else for us that you're still curious about?
Well, I just the two of you, Stacey and Brandon, you started SF fencing organization, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and the two of you coming together, listening to you talk, it's like perfect co-CEOs or whatever. You said the aha moment, Stacey, that I had one of those. We were at the Triumph Foundation, and a little girl who was in a wheelchair, and she was fencing. They were showing her how to fence, and I don't know if they were speaking English or not, because there was another woman that was her mom was translating a little bit going on, and the instructor was, and it probably took them 5 minutes to get her to hold the bow and to pull it back and the whole thing, and the arrow shot out. It's probably 30 feet, and it shot out. It arced. It did not have any momentum on it, but it hit the target. And oh my gosh, I started tearing up because she looked at her mother and she was like, "Did I do that? Was that my arrow? What? Oh, how is that possible? I did it." And the crowd kind of went, and and it was like everything made worthwhile for that aha moment. And then to switch that with Brandon, being around Doug, thresholds, or sometimes just simple door thresholds, are an obstacle. And it's like, what? Nobody thinks about these. You don't need a threshold that's 5 inches tall. Make it accessible, and just how that little bump, literally a bump, can do, and how the two of you can solve these problems and make these things happen, and really make a difference in people's lives. That's it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Well, and it is true, all those things. And I will say that the two of us as life partners and work partners, it is also challenging. We have different operating systems, as I like to say. So we have to do a lot of communication and a lot of understanding of our neurodiversity. And I think where our students benefit is that we can see how I like to learn, how Brandon likes to learn. And we often approach the kids and say, okay, when you get a new Lego set and it's to put together the Millennium Falcon, or when you get a new board game, do you take out those pieces, read the directions in full, really figure out that plan, and then attack it? Or do you rip open the box and you toss it out on the ground and screw the directions and you just start to put it together? Yeah, there's such a difference there, but it informs how kids learn. And so then we can go from there and say, oh, hey, Brandon, remember, this one's really a learner like me. They really like the steps. Or, hey, experiential learner over here. And so instead of trying to squelch the creativity and the individuality of students of all ages, we can use their neurodiversity and enhance what they're doing, what they're learning, and we all have a better time.
Well, this is awesome. Learning all about this and getting into the minutia. I enjoy it so much. But we don't have a lot of time. But I want to get to, and maybe we can kind of put a bow on all this with this, is we've got the Paralympics coming up, and now that we've got a bit of an education on parafencing, who should we be looking for? What should we be looking for with the Paralympics coming up if we want to view that and check that out? Either one of you.
Well, so you could take it.
I was just going to say, Garrett, we started working with Garrett, almost 3 years ago, and he qualified in all three weapons. And I believe he's the only U.S. parafencer who's going to compete in all three weapons. So
what are the three weapons?
Foil, epee, and saber.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so foil and epee are poking weapons. There's a little button on the tip, and you have to depress those with a certain amount of pressure to get them to go off. Saber, there is no button. The whole entire blade is conductive. So if that conductive blade touches a conductive lame, the jacket made with metal threads, it will make the circuit complete and then turn on the light.
And
we're going to say Garrett. His name is William Garrett Schoonover. He goes by Garrett, and he posted a video on his social media, which he just started because he got into the Paralympics, of his very first practice with Brandon and his buddy Mason in November 3 years ago. So it's pretty amazing that he's made the Paralympics in less than 3 years.
So he just posted that video from 3 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can kind of see the whole progress, really, and changes. So are you still coaching him now recently?
We do online stuff. We've talked and stuff, not as much as I'd like to. Starting this club here has taken up more time than I was expecting.
Yeah.
But we're seeing what we can do. Like the whole community that I worked with in Utah has been really great and has come together to help him out as well. So he's working with all the local clubs there as well, and just trying to get him where he needs to be to give his best. And we'll see how he does in Paris, and then we're looking at LA after that.
Very nice. Well, that'll be a proud parent kind of moment for you guys.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. Are you going to get to go, or?
No, I do not get to go. The committee who assigns tickets to coach staff, they only gave the U.S. one coach's ticket. So
yeah. All right. Well, Los Angeles will be easier to get to.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's also wrap up with how they can get a hold of you. How can our listeners? And I think if I haven't done it already, I would definitely will put it up on our resources page. But what's your website, social media, all those kinds of things.
Our website is.
Go ahead.
Our website is sffencingacademy.com. We're SF Fencing Academy on Instagram, San Francisco Fencing Academy on Facebook, and you can reach us at manager@sffencingacademy.com, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Very nice. And Forrest, any final thoughts from you?
No, it's been a pleasure, and I will watch when I watch the Olympics. I won't be a newbie. I'll have a little of experience and I know what to watch for, and I'll be thinking of you too and your organization and what you're doing to help people, and look forward to it. And I love to see articulate and passionate people and good people be successful. So I got my thumbs up here. I can't see with the video, but both thumbs up for both of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your passion and all of that with us. Thank you very much for joining us on Walk and Roll Live. And I'll tell you, just in our conversation, there was a couple of things that have given me ideas for upcoming topics. So don't be surprised if you see one or both of our guests on again on Walk and Roll Live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tuned in to Walk and Roll Live podcast. Such a refreshing perspective on life and disability. Love it.
Every episode brings a new story that's both inspiring and eye-opening. Can't get enough.
The hosts make you feel like you're part of a genuine conversation. Walk and Roll Live is my weekly dose of positivity.
Walk and Roll Live is a game changer. It's not just about disabilities. It's about embracing life's challenges with a smile. Highly recommend.
My go-to podcast for real, unfiltered conversations. It's like having a cup of coffee with friends who share incredible stories.
Walk and Roll Live. Welcome to Walk and Roll Live with Doug Vincent and Eric Aguilar. And it's so happy for your life. And it's so fine.
Welcome back to Walk and Roll Live. I am not Eric Aguilar. Eric is, what did you say? He was off getting smarter?
Yeah. He's got some online classes that he's taking. We did talk about doing, finally, we've mentioned it several times, because he's very much into disaster preparedness, and especially with as relates to adaptive needs. And so he's going to be on later today to record that. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to drop it, but just in the next few days. So he's going to give his presentation that he's done for Possibilities and some other organizations. So he's going to have that. And it'll be kind of a special episode of Walk and Roll Live. So we'll do that later.
Okay. I'm Forrest Kelly helping out. Stacey and Brandon really brought a diverse interview, because Stacey was kind of mind meld with what the way I think. And then Brandon is a get it done kind of guy. I think he was saying that he had a project, a roof, he had to complete. And so what a couple of great guests and a great organization.
Yeah, good team, right?
They're definitely getting things done. Looking forward to the watching the Olympics too, and with a different lens.
I never know when. I don't know how to approach it. Sometimes I don't know if the guests have a disability, so I had them on to talk about this. I knew they were coaches and of parafencing and all of that, but I didn't know. So when we asked them to introduce themselves and, mention any disability that you have, because we like to give context to the conversation with that, so I've always got a surprise when people will say, because it just goes back to things that we talk about all the time too, is that all disabilities aren't visible, so when you accost somebody, I'm not saying everybody does this, but sometimes, people will question somebody who has a placard, say, well, you don't know what's going on with that person. So just keep that in mind. So it was great to hear that, they have that extra bit of kind of understanding, of the disability community, let's put it that way. So got that extra sensitivity, right?
That's the one thing about Doug that a lot of you may not know. Perhaps listening to the podcast, you kind of get an idea. But in person, Doug is not a flag waver. He has never, ever said, I've got a disability and I want to be at the front of the line. Never. And he's always come with the group. And there's been times where I've had to check myself, where it's like, oh yeah, okay, Doug can't go into a third story house because they don't have an elevator.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, but part of me still thinking, well, we'll find a way, and Doug will be right there with that adventure.
Yep. I can get a little hairy sometimes too.
Yeah. So not everybody who has a disability wants to necessarily talk about it or put it in front of your face.
I not now, but I'll do this little tease. There's been a few times over the course of my life where I pulled the card, and there's some decent stories that have come out of that. So maybe at some time we'll share those.
Yeah. That would be funny, because I'd love to hear those, because it's always funny, when we hear the celebrities of, do you know who I am? It's like, oh, really? You're going to play that card right now? Not the time to do it, buddy. No. You're obviously drunk and you're in somebody's front yard. Like, okay,
things aren't going well for you.
Yeah, exactly.
All righty. Well, just want to remind everybody that if you're looking for, say, adaptive equipment or a scholarship to help you with college and you just need a little extra financial bump right now, you need to check out our events page for grants from Possibilities and Triumph Foundation. They are taking applications now. So that's on there on the events page. And then we also added just recently to the events page, information about the SoCal Adaptive Sports Programs. That's Mike Rosenkrantz, who we talked to a few weeks ago. A long list of them. If you click on that, it'll take you through many different things, archery and several other things. So check that out. And if, like we always say, all that stuff is on the resource page, a myriad of different resources. But if you look and you don't find the one you need or want, let us know, and we'll kind of hunt it down, and we'll continue to add things all the time on that. Next week, we have a special edition of Walk and Roll Live. We're going to devote the entire episode to the Paralympics. We're going to have Mike Skinner on from Triumph Foundation. Mike Rosenkrantz is going to join us as well, and reached out to a couple of former Olympians and somebody that tried for this year but didn't make it, and we asked them if they'd come on. Haven't heard from them yet, so hopefully, cross your fingers, we'll get them on. All right. Otherwise,
I was just looking at the Walk and Roll employee list.
Yes.
And I noticed that Mike was on there, so it's like, okay, he's on employee now, going to be doing live broadcasts, live check-ins from Paris. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice get.
Actually, Andrew.
Okay.
Andrew's going to, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've asked him. I haven't gotten a reply on that, but I'm fairly confident he'll do that for us. Absolutely. So we can put him on the spot and we'll ask him next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing if it sounds like he's in Paris. If we can get that audio sound.
Yeah, see if we can get the feel.
In the background or, anything.
Yeah, an accordion? Is that what? That's always, that always brings France to mind with me. So we'll have to look for that.
Yep, right. The little tables, the 2-seater tables sitting on the sidewalk.
Having a cappuccino? Or no, that's Italian. What do you have at a French restaurant? French roast?
Kind of French press coffee?
Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, brother. Thank you for stepping in and helping us out. Forrest Kelly and the Best 5-Minute Podcast. I believe that's on our resources page too. Maybe not.
On there. Yep.
Is it?
Yep.
Good. Yeah. We like to share, like to help out our friends. All right, I'm going to head for the door. I'll see you later. Put the toy box away and let's get out of here. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, along with Forrest Kelly today from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.
Walk and roll life. Life's the best. Walk and roll life. Life limitless.
Here tonight, hearts and wheels we shine bright, rolling through this life, every step a brand new vibe, voices loud and clear, stories shared without a fear, life's a song we steer, with each turn we cheer and steer. Walk and roll live, feel the beat inside, together we thrive in this dance of life, shares and dreams in sync, miles of joy in every blink. Life's not what you think, on this stage we're in the pink. Walk and roll live, feel the beat inside, together we thrive in this dance of life. Hold my hand, let's glide, barriers we defy.